Hello and welcome to episode 125 of Tom's Hardware, the podcast, and it's April 11, 2023. Third of the way through the year already, that's scary. Anyway, I'm your host, Associate Editor Les Pounder, and with me as always is Raspberry Pi expert Ash Hill. And our guest this week should have been Sean Tracy, but Sean is ill, unfortunately, so get well soon, Sean. He'll be joining us on April 25 now. So instead, we have a fantastic project. I spotted this a couple of weeks ago. And the person who made it is with us tonight. It's Pixylatte, and it's awesome. It turns this Tufty 2040, which I've had in my drawer for a while now, into a retro games console. So I'm going to turn it over to Pixie to talk about this now. So Pixie, can you tell us more about yourself and what you can do with a Tufty 2040?
Oh, hello. I'm Pixie. I'm from Brazil, and I work as a software developer, as a software engineer actually, and I work primarily on chatbots, and I we are messing with ChatGPT now and see what functionality we can extract from it and stuff. So that's it from my professional part. And on the free time, I like playing games, of course.
Excellent.
Messing with hardware like the Tufty. I had an Arduino. A while ago, I automated the lightnings in my room using it, using the Arduino,
Cool.
some relay shields and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not working right now, but it was a fun project. I like messing with electronics and stuff. So yeah, and recently I got this badge from Pimoroni. It's a really fun badge to work on stuff because it has everything built in: the buttons, the screen, the software support they add on top, they put on top of it. You can, contrary to Arduino, now you can code these things on Python instead of just rely on C. I mean, it's easier to work. So I made a. So I decided to make River Hide from the Atari because it's not that hard. It starts to be a bit. It's a good challenging take to, and it's a good challenging project to take while learning a bit more about Python and how to use the libraries for the display and stuff.
So it's programmed in MicroPython. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's in MicroPython.
That's awesome. So, oh, that is cool. And you're playing it as well, which is difficult.
Yeah, it's really difficult to play like this, but just show a bit.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That is awesome. I mean, how easy was it to make the game in MicroPython?
Yeah, the MicroPython part was the easiest one because I have some background on Python. It's a easy to learn language. The documentation for the picographics was good too. So, how do I use the image the image, the display part? How do I use the I forgot the name for the. I will open GitHub right now here, and how do I draw sprites and the open then on during the program? Like everything was well documented, was easy to use and stuff. I think the hardest part was getting the logic for some specific aspects, like drawing the background, because the background on River Hide it can get narrow, wider, it can split in two, and there's the collision with this background.
Yeah.
There's the transition from one to another. That was a fun part to make.
Definitely. I mean, it's interesting how you put the game together. So it's sprites on a sprite map, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it used the sprites. Yeah, I wish there was support for flipping the sprites, so I would not need to make two of it for each bolt for your or even your ship when it's turning left or right.
Ah,
Right.
yes.
Because
Yeah,
I had to make two copies of the flipped for each side.
that's very
But
true. I
yeah,
mean, that's something that you could always recommend to Pimoroni. They were on a few weeks ago talking about Pico graphics and talking about how improved it has been in recent times. So you're a great use case because you're using their API, their modules to make this work.
yeah, like it was not the end of the world. Like use a bit more space on my spreadsheet and just flip the images, but could be helpful. So
Definitely.
there's that.
So you've got the sprites scrolling up the screen. So how did you work out collision detection? Because whenever I've tried to make a game, I've always found collision detection to be nigh on impossible for my tiny brain.
Oh yeah, it is kind of tricky. So each object has its own. The plane, the boats, the background, they all have their object instance. The object instance will have their coordinates and their size.
Hmm.
So I just check square collisions actually. So
Okay.
like the coordinate, like the square from this one collides with the square from this other one.
Yeah.
So you can while playing stumble upon some collisions that should not happen, but there's a limitation for the approach I choose.
Mm.
I could have went with pixel collision, but that would be a lot of work, and I was not feeling like it.
I really appreciate how a game like that seems so simple, but whenever you have to sit down and recreate it from scratch,
Yeah,
there's a lot of elements that go into it. Was there anything that surprised you, or that maybe threw you for a loop, like a difficulty that you faced when trying to put it together?
yeah, I think the simplest part was the plane, the boats, and the collision part. The background was surprisingly difficult because, as I mentioned, the on the original game, the the lake can get either the river can get either wider or narrow in the.
Yeah.
So for this part, I made a couple bits with a template like 0001 is one side of the bridge. I flip it for the other, and the ones are and the ones are grounded. The zeros are water. I made an array with a couple of those examples. I shuffle around them randomly, and from that template, I decided how to draw the background and what where I should have collisions or not, because you are not supposed to go over the ground. So this part was tricky. The part where you go from one terrain to another, and there is this slope, was also tricky to draw.
Yeah. I notice in the game you get one life, and then that's it. It's game over. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, in the original game you get 3 lives, I guess, and the bridge serves as a checkpoint. I have not yet implemented that. So it's 1 life, the bridges does nothing. It's also missing the explosion effect when you destroy a bridge, where
Yeah.
the entire screen flickers. Flickers not. The entire screen blinks in
Yeah. Yeah,
blue and
like
red.
a flash effect. Yeah.
Yeah,
Understand.
so
Yeah.
it's missing that too.
That would be awesome. I mean, River Raid was difficult, so just having one life makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
hardcore mode.
Yeah, definitely.
it was difficult to develop for the Atari too, because the the cartridge has no space for the levels. They are
Hmm.
randomly generated with a fixed seed.
Are they? Didn't know that.
Yeah,
Ah,
I was researching for making a game and found that like we can't fit the levels in the cartridge, so there's this random algorithm to make the levels, and we fix the seed so it's always the same. but it's procedurally generated all the time.
That's clever. I like how hardware limitations can push the way that developers put games together. It reminds me of Crash Bandicoot when they were talking. I was watching a video where the developers were talking about how they had to like create the world to just buffer in a small zone, so you don't have the whole level loaded at once. It would just load it in chunks, and when you get to the next spot, it had just a little bit in front of it ready to load.
Yeah,
It's just neat. Creative constraint.
Yeah. PS1 also has no floating point unit on its CPU, so there's a whole range of limitations and workaround the developers had to make for that console.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they still have limitations to this day. I mean, if you look at something more recent, Star Wars Fallen Order, whenever the character crawls through a little crawl space and has to turn sideways on to go to the next bit, that's because it's buffering to load the next section of the game.
That's clever.
But it's forcing you to slow down with this cramped environment. It's clever what programmers do to make us believe that the world is bigger than what it really is.
Yeah, like clever ways of hiding loading screens.
That's the title of your next book.
Yeah, way better than Skyrim.
Right?
I've never played Skyrim, so I don't know.
Yeah, I recommend playing on an SSD because a lot of doors on the game will prompt you a loading screen. Like you enter in a cave, loading. You get in a city, loading. You get inside a building on that city, loading.
Oh,
I recommend Morrowind before Skyrim any day, though. Morrowind's where it's at.
Yeah, it is good too.
It's leagues better, just not graphics wise.
Well, it has not aged as badly as Oblivion.
There is that.
That I have played, and yes, it has aged rather badly. Yes. So talking of other games, Pixie, you've made some more games for the Tufty.
Oh, right. I also have made on my free time a dice roller for the... I will eventually update my GitHub and add the dice roller and the snake for there, but I made a dice roller. Let me show it here. It won't focus, obviously, but...
I love how you're reusing Pimoroni's standard menu as well. It's just adding an extra menu item.
Like it's a nice menu, and it's plug and play for you to add your own files on top, and it will just show up without you have to do anything. Like you choose the kind of dice you want to roll, the amount of dice you want to roll. I go with 12d20s.
If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, and just rolls.
That looks so good.
That's awesome.
You can go back, choose a different dice, like a d6, roll them.
Nice. I like that it takes a second to actually
choose
a number. It feels like you're actually waiting for the roll to go through.
Yeah, because it would be equally random to just show up instantly, but it would feel not feel random.
Yeah.
No. How random is the random number generator? Is there a seed to make it slightly more random, or is it?
I have not fixed the seed. I believe the seed is based on ticks or some sort of timestamp that is hard to reproduce consistently.
Yeah.
I also when I'm rolling like that, I'm calling the random algorithm a couple of times to generate each time until I stop it at one point.
Nice. Very cool. So you've got another game as well, which is something that us older generation will know intimately.
Yeah, we used to have those on our phones.
Oh yeah.
It's a snake. I called it Python because Python.
Nice.
That's cool.
I really I can print you.
Goodbye productivity. Yeah, that's me done. I'll just sit there and play that all day.
Yeah, like this was made when I was waiting for lunch. Like, Python should be really, really easy to make because there is just one array for the snake, one object for the food.
Yeah.
The collision system and coordinate is easier because it's a block thing. Like you have
Yeah.
12 by 60 blocks, and like either you are on that block or not. So it's easier to make collision check. The contours are simpler too. The hardest part is trying to navigate while facing away from the screen.
Why, yeah. We know you're not that bad at Snake.
That is cool.
So yeah, I will eventually got to print the score, draw the screen, draw the snake a bit more, in a bit more fancier way and stuff. But for the quick hack, it was nice. Like took less than an hour to make this.
Is that
Nice.
using the Pico graphics engine as well?
Yeah, it's also used the Pico graphics. It's even used the JPEG deck to print the full image. I just pick whatever random picture I had laying around on the Tufty because I was traveling at the time. So I was traveling. I had my notebook, so I had my laptop. So why not?
That's brilliant. Now, I like as well the case that you have for the Tufty, because traditionally you buy the Tufty and it's just open to the elements.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah, I found that case that you already linked on that article, and I printed the front part of it, the middle part of it, and left away the back part where you fit the battery and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just drilled the hole for the battery manually.
Good
So
thinking.
that's a rechargeable coin cell battery. It's fast to replace and put and in case it's run out of juice and you need to keep playing.
That's cool.
Nice.
How long does it last on the battery?
Yeah. There's a problem. It's a really small battery, so a couple hours to around 3 hours.
Oh, that's okay.
You can reduce the brightness of the screen if you want to.
Yeah, that'd save you a bit of time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think for a badge you would like more the e-ink ones, because those ones will get you days of using it as a badge and changing the image whenever you want. I
Yeah.
even have one, an ink frame 4.0.
Oh, nice. You were ready to go with that.
Same kind of battery. It lasts for days.
I've got the 7-inch version of that
Oh,
to play with. So
yeah, that would be a bit. That would get a bit. Yeah, nice one. That's a bit large for a badge.
Yeah, it would be really. I've got spikes and I've got to be careful on the back here, but it would look a bit silly, wouldn't it? Really?
No.
Yeah, I think 4 inches looks nice.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a worse one to look one that would look even sillier would be,
Yeah, they've got the little hole punched up. This is supposed
Galactic
to be.
Unicorn.
Yeah.
Man, I surely want to import a few more things from Pimoroni.
I do believe you do.
Once you start, you can't stop.
Yeah. Even
started with the Picade years ago, and now it just keeps going.
Yeah. Even when I have to go as far as using packet forwarding services because they don't ship it directly to here.
There we go. It's unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, I have a similar problem with Adafruit to the UK, so it can cost a lot to get it shipped to the UK. So I have to wait until Pimoroni stock it, then I can buy from them directly. But it's usually about 8 weeks delay between the two, which is unfortunate, but I have to wait 2 months. It's fine. I just think of everyone else in the US who has to wait 2 to 3 months for stuff to come along from the UK to America, because we've got loads of Pi stuff over here.
Now, Pimoroni has some really cool battery packs that are made to just integrate so easily with like their Tufty and stuff like that. And they can't legally ship them over here because they're batteries. So we have to put something together ourselves by soldering or try and find some kind of aftermarket version. And that's not as fun. I want the real hardware.
Yeah, I have not even tried shipping their batteries here for this exact reason.
Yeah,
like the board itself was hard to bring here. So. But yeah, this coin cell battery worked really well for this project. It's easy to implement here, easy to
Yeah.
To have a couple spare ones and replace it on the fly.
Yeah.
I'd love to try one of those batteries with a Badger. So the original Badger, not the 2040W version, but the original, because that just sips power. It doesn't use a lot of juice when it just changes screen. That's it. So it could last a really long time, and that would be interesting with a coin cell like that.
Yeah, and you'll get these rechargeable ones.
Yeah.
That are 3.7 volts even. They work really
cool.
well.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned earlier on that you work with ChatGPT and chatbots, that sort of thing, for your day-to-day work. Well, I've got something you might be interested in to have a look at now. I'm going to stick this into the comments so everyone can see this link. And I'll also put it into our chat so we've got the link to share with ourselves.
Oh, let me see.
Here we go. So this is something I spotted about just over a week ago. So ChatGPT, Raspberry Pi powered Furby plans world domination. It's really cool. So someone called Jessica Card made this, and it's combining Raspberry Pi with a Furby. And if anyone's too young to understand what Furby is, it's an electronic toy from the 90s and early 2000s that talked gibberish. It had a proper name. Was it Furblish or something like that?
Furbish, I think.
Furbish, thank you. And they were a massive craze. But what Jessica Card has done has plugged in ChatGPT into this Furby with a Raspberry Pi. And now the questions that they asked it were things like, what are you planning to do? And this Furby was planning to take over the world.
Yeah, as if Furbies were not creepy enough.
Exactly. It's really interesting to see how these toys can be hacked. So have you got any ideas perhaps about using ChatGPT into a project and hacking it together yourself?
Yeah, I think most of my projects until now were made to work offline, but why not? It would be fun to give it a go too.
Yeah, I mean, Pimoroni were on the show a few weeks ago, and we talked about Tufty 2040, perhaps in the future getting an update with Wi-Fi connectivity.
Yeah, that would be nice. Like the Badger 2040 had got this update already, right?
That's right. Yeah, that would be a really cool use of ChatGPT. So having some sort of passive device that just displays data. You don't even have to ask it a question, perhaps. It's just there relaying data from something that's pre-described. So, at 2:00, you like to know what the weather is or the news headlines, or you need to have a reminder if you need to do something. It's all possible.
Yeah, I think that would be really a really nice use for the Inky frames, because they could be sitting there for days, sipping little power and updating the screen after making a prompt.
Yeah, that would be cool. So, talking of projects, Ash, I do believe you've been looking through some of the best Raspberry Pi projects recently.
Yes. For those who are not familiar with what we do here at Tom's Hardware, we obviously love the Raspberry Pi, and we cover Raspberry Pi projects on a regular basis. And once a month, I like to collect a list of the best Raspberry Pi projects that we've covered. And I say best, but I'll admit I'm biased. I think they're all fantastic, and it's usually really hard to narrow it down. So what I wanted to share with you guys today is just a peek at that list to get you excited. And of course, you can always find the full list of projects over at tomshardware.com. So this is for the month of April, because like Les said at the beginning of the show, it's hard to believe, but we're already we're a quarter into the year, and that's kind of crazy. But on the subject of ChatGPT, I wanted to share this Raspberry Pi Clippy project. It's got a beautiful 3D printed housing. Looks just like Clippy. If you're not familiar with Clippy, he was a virtual assistant built into Windows XP. So for most of the early 2000s, this little guy was popping up every time you tried to open a Word document and things like that. And this maker is using ChatGPT to bring him to life so he can continue to assist you well into the 21st century.
That is frightening.
Clippy had some fun animations.
Oh, I know. I like the dog and the wizard too. I feel ashamed I can't remember their names.
Imagine if Clippy and the Furby were put together. That would be an unholy alliance that would take over the world, but would do it in a nice, positive way.
It would be very old school. So the next one I wanted to share with you guys. I like this project because it shows how you can use a Raspberry Pi to fix problems that you didn't know you had, or rather, this project uses a Pi as a sort of adapter, and they've used it to create a second HDMI port for their laptop. So if your laptop only has one, but you need another, and you've got a Raspberry Pi lying around, like many Raspberry Pi enthusiasts usually do, this is the project for you. I think it actually transmits via Ethernet. The data goes through via Ethernet to the Pi, and then you can access the HDMI. I thought that was pretty clever.
It's a really clever project. It just shows how resourceful makers can be. I mean, you could just go to the shop and get a DisplayLink USB dongle and be done with it. But this person put this together from bits that were found in their drawers, in their boxes. And it's a great showcase as well of how Linux can be used to put things together. So this is just sending video. I think it's over VNC connection, but it's a low latency VNC connection over Ethernet. Now, you wouldn't think that's the best way to send video signals just for a second screen, but if it's not something you need exact timings for or exact color correction on, it's just something that's going to display text or just a web page, it's absolutely fine. And it's the whole blog post written on this. I read through it for this write-up news post. It's fantastic in detail on how it explains every single step of the way. So if you get a chance, have a read.
Oh, definitely. And you know what? I always say that just because you can do something with the Raspberry Pi doesn't mean you should, but you should do it anyway, because that's like the spirit of Raspberry Pi projects, is doing things because you can, not because you should. And that goes back to Pixie's project. Like, we already have River Raid on the Atari, but why not recreate it with the Raspberry Pi? Why not recreate Snake? Like, do we need another copy of Snake? Well, yeah, because now you can do it on a Tufty, and it's fun. This is the spirit of the community.
Definitely. I remember when we wrote up Pixie's story, I went to the Internet Archive to look up River Raid. I need to find out the cartridge size, because I forgot how big 2600 cartridges were. They're 4 kilobytes, I found out since. And you can play River Raid in your browser. I was like, really? That's my day completely gone then.
Oh.
Yeah, I spent a decent amount of time playing on the browser when I was coding the game.
Play testing. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So the last project I wanted to share to get you guys excited for our list is this really cool Raspberry Pi 4 upgrade. So Raspberry Pis are still, unfortunately, kind of hard to get a hold of. And if you've got a low-spec Raspberry Pi, you might want to do what this maker did and upgrade it with an 8GB module of RAM. Now, that requires so much patience, and I don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. I'm a little lazy, I guess, in that regard. But the fact that they not only did it, but it worked, I mean, that's just really cool. Credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now they've got an 8GB Raspberry Pi 4 to play with.
I think that gotta require a reballing station.
Yeah, it's a ball grid array, a BGA underneath the chip, and the person doing it bought the replacement RAM with the BGA already affixed to the base of it. So it's a case of just desoldering the old chip off, cleaning it down, and putting the new one on with some heat. I mean, I say that blasé, like it's really easy to do. It's not.
No.
It is really difficult to do. But this person did it with pretty much basic soldering tools. There was a soldering station with a hot air rework, but it wasn't super duper thousands of pounds equipment. It was, a couple of $100 really, the equipment.
And patience.
Definitely patience, yeah.
Now, I know I said I was at the end of the list, but I'll just give a sneak peek at what was next. Ha ha ha. It's a good list of cool projects, I promise. So that's what I had to share with you guys. And if you want to see the full list of projects, go to tomshardware.com. There's a lot of neat stuff out there, and we always link back to the creators if they share a GitHub link. If you want to see the code, how it goes together, we'll share that so you can really dig into the meat of the project and see how it goes.
Definitely. Right. Well, thank you very much, Ash. And it's the end of the show. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put in the chat a link to Pixie's code. So if you want to play the game yourself, download the code, stick it on a Tufty 2040, and away you go. Have some fun, kill a bit of time. So that's in the chat now if you want to play. Pixie, thank you very much for being on the show at such short notice as well.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
It was great to have you on. That's all for this week. We're back next week at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. in the UK. Thanks for watching. See you next week.